is Up for Grabs, a podcast where three unfiltered friends talk about anything and everything. And now, here are your hosts, Tracy, Kim, and Rachel.
Welcome to Up for Grabs. I'm Rachel. I'm here with my friends Kim.
Hello.
And Tracy.
Hi.
Today on Up for Grabs, we're going to talk about intuition, something that everyone has and may or may not use. We read a book. It was called Listening in the Dark, and it was a collection of essays about, it was specific to, they were all women, but I don't think if you were a man, you weren't allowed to read it.
No, because I told my son that a lot of it does, some of them had to do with women and the Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff, but definitely it would speak to a man as well, I think.
Why do you think, though, they always say women's intuition? Like, do men have a men's intuition? Is that a thing? Maybe there was a chapter I didn't read there.
That is strange. So. That is true, Tracy.
Like, do men get a gut feeling?
Oh, absolutely.
And what's that called?
I just think that they look at women as more emotional beings and that they would be more in touch with
that would make
that
sense.
instinct.
But also they talked about like women's intuition. Then some of the essays were talking about the origin of it. And they were talking about how when women would use that, it was almost like a witchcrafty sort of thing. Like it was very woman specific.
Yeah,
it was. But
I think I have powers, so that's probably...
I'd like to talk about that.
I like when Rachel puts her hand down.
That was one of my favorite.
She puts her hand down on the table with a thud.
That was one of my favorite essays. The one on that.
Okay.
Oh, I don't even know that one.
They talked about. Well, we'll talk about it in a minute. But
okay.
I think that it's definitely geared towards women because it's written by a woman and the essays are all by women.
Yeah.
But by no means would a man not get something out of it.
True.
I just think that's sexist to think that they wouldn't because everybody has intuition.
Yeah.
And I think they did, I guess I should finish my thought. So the book was called Listening in the Dark. It's a book of essays about intuition, and Amber Tamblyn is the author. She wrote a couple of the different essays in there. I knew her name because she used to be on General Hospital.
And I struggled with giving her any credibility because of that.
But she was
I'm not saying, I was judging. Because I'm like, really? Because I just see you with the Quartermaines. So I don't know.
But she was also in the Traveling Pants series of movies.
And I couldn't watch that either because she, again, was with the Quartermaines. So I don't know.
You pigeonholed her.
I watched it, but yes, I pigeonholed her. And I really struggled with seeing her as an actual intellectual person.
Well, the way she writes, she is.
I know.
Yeah.
Like I know that on one sense, but on the other, I didn't watch General Hospital. You're the little girl from General Hospital.
Well, the thing that I took away that I didn't know about her was that she said she was a published poet in her teen, like before during the time she was on General Hospital. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know you knew how to write. So I was impressed. She's a deep thinker. I was impressed with her. And do you guys know who her husband is?
Well, I looked up a picture of her. So but her husband did not look familiar to me.
Oh, then maybe it's not who I think it is.
Well, I don't know.
I think that it's David Cross, the guy that plays on Arrested Development, the Never Nude.
Really?
The Blue Man Group. What's Tobias?
Tobias.
I think it is him. I think that's who that is.
Did you
Now I know who you're talking about. They didn't match
quirky
to me as a couple.
But she's quirky.
Are they in the same age range though?
She said when she did the essay
40.
with America, whatever.
Ferrera.
They were early 40s, I think. She said, or pushing 40.
Pushing 40.
Okay.
And I don't know. I would guess he's closer to pushing 50, but...
What do we know?
Yeah, but I think that's who that is now that you think about it.
Okay. Well, that was just a fun side fact. I was like, oh my God, and she's married to David Cross? Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the book. Like we said, it was a series of essays, and it was different perspectives about how different people discovered their intuition or used it or honed it or whatever. I thought it was interesting that they had like Samantha Irby is kind of a humorist, and she wrote about how intuition helped her discover that she could write down all of her anxiety and stuff and be funny. And
she was okay. So that's who that was. Okay, yeah. So she was the one that was her outlet for all her OCD, really,
and anxiety.
Being an over anxious person. Yeah, that really spoke to me a lot.
Well, she was funny because basically she was like, I don't know, and this is a good question. What's the difference between intuition and just being an anxious person? Because she was like, any decision she had to make as an anxious person, she would see all the things that could go wrong or why it was a dangerous idea. And she's like, so I never knew when I was
being intuitive. But although I think intuition would point you in the right direction, wouldn't it? I mean, isn't that the purpose of it? Would be to guide you in some way?
Yeah, but if you're super anxious and all of your inner voice is always telling you.
Yeah, because I think
the options, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like your intuition would narrow down the options that your anxiety would bring up. Does that make sense?
You could pick the best of the worst.
Yes. I'm all about picking the best of the worst. That's my life motto.
Yeah. So, but it went from having her as, like a humorist or a writer or whatever. And then they had doctors and it got really sciencey about, your gut brain and all this stuff about how it makes sense that it's called listening to your gut because.
Absolutely.
And why it is that was really interesting to me.
All right. First off, I'm going to say before we go any further that I used to be a very avid reader. I read all the time, but I struggle with reading now. Like I fall asleep instantly, and that is not something that I used to do. And I don't sleep that well, so it's not like, that I don't know. It's very weird. So I listened to it on audio, and you two acting like you did the whole thing. You dirty dogged me because in the instructions for this podcast, you said, listen to this essay and then pick at least another one.
Sure.
So I did like 3 or 4 thinking that I did the assignment.
You did.
And then you guys come in saying that you did them all.
I never fully.
I feel like you tricked me is all I'm saying.
I did not think that I would finish it.
Because I felt like an overachiever listening to several.
Well, this was an elaborate setup to make you feel
once again unprepared. All right, go on.
No,
I do have a few notes, but there are things that I just won't be able to speak to. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Of the ones that you didn't fall asleep to, was there one? Why don't we start with what you did do? Did anything jump out?
We all did the America one, right? So we can start there.
The interview at the end.
Yes. Amber Tamblyn is
the
friends
two of them
with.
Speaking.
Yes.
Yeah. So Amber Tamblyn and America Ferrera, who I know as Ugly Betty.
That's how I know
but they
her
were
too.
both on the Sisterhood. They were both in the same movie, and that's how they got to know each other.
And so they're best friends.
They're best friends. Yeah.
Correct.
So there was one essay of just a transcript of their conversation about intuition and stuff like that. We all read that one.
Yeah.
And then do you want to just start with what you know and then?
No. No, but one thing that caught me was that she said they were both almost 40 and they're really feeling their intuition. And I kind of thought, now I'm 53. At almost 40, I probably thought I knew a lot. And at 53, I feel like I know nothing. So I wonder where they will be in 10 or 15 years with because they felt pretty secure in their intuition and their gut guiding their motivations, and they felt like they knew their direction. And I mean, I have trouble thinking back, but at 40, I feel like I felt more sure about things than I do at 53.
That makes sense.
So I wonder if it's an age thing or where a point of life thing, partially.
I'm glad you said that.
So I'm not dismissing them.
No.
But I'm saying, does it change?
I think that when I first started reading the book, I thought I kind of downloaded it late in the game, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish this. I'm very big on if I read something health-wise or I read something like your intuition or whatever, that I'm searching, why don't I feel like I have intuition? And so I wanted to read every essay because I wanted something to speak to me that would give me the answer, that how I could dig down deep and find it. I think that I don't think I have intuition right now at all.
Yeah.
But looking back when I was raising my kids when they were young, I felt like I was much more in tune with when they were sick or when something was going on at school or something just didn't feel right. I think age has something to do with it. I mean, and for me, it is that I felt like in my 30s, I probably was at the peak of my intuition. But now I feel like everything's just noisy all the time.
I know. I feel very similar, and I feel like I have absolutely zero intuition in regard to myself.
Me too.
And my own life. But when it comes to my kids and their upbringing, oh my gosh, I was on point on so much of it. I mean, not all of it, but, certain friends or situations.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I was very in tune to it.
Yeah.
With my kids, not so much me.
Yeah.
Well, that speaks volumes, don't you think? Because that means you have the intuition. You're just not applying it to yourself.
Yeah, I think
Don't
our
be
own
rude.
lives are hard to quiet.
What'd you say?
I said, don't be rude.
Don't call me out like that. This is exactly, I was setting you up. No, but I'm saying, you have it because we all have felt that with our kids when we just know something isn't right.
Right.
We don't know what it is, but we know something isn't right.
Correct.
And that means if we are able to do it for our kids, then we certainly are able to do it for ourselves if we want to.
You say certainly like it's easy, though, and Kim and I are saying it's not.
Well, I'm not saying it's
I
easy,
felt
but
defeated after I read the book, and not in a bad way.
Yeah.
I felt like, first of all, okay, let's say there were 10 essays. I think the majority of them were, I'm just not, my DNA is not who these women were. I mean, very in touch and intellectual and just grounded and rooted in because of their life experience. I don't know. I think I felt very, where's my intuition? Like, I felt like I'm not a deep person. I'm not a feeler. I'm not this. Like, it fascinated me to hear the stories, especially there was one about a lady, like kind of going back in the history of mystic women, like Catherine of Siena. And
she's throwing out
spitting
names
these out because
Go
of the
ahead,
book.
Kim, name
or
dropper.
Joan of Arc. I told myself, I hope the reading's not above me, but I want to start reading about these women because it was fascinating back, like how it all started in the history of what, like you said, they used to think that women that were in touch with their thoughts and were witches.
Yeah.
And were burned at the stake. I mean, you couldn't, if you went against getting married, having kids, being the stereotypical, following all these steps, if you went against that, and these women did, look what kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was
And
very, very interesting.
That made me think maybe they call it women's intuition because women had no other power in society at all. The only thing, so they called it women's intuition because that's all they had. Like men's intuition was just what happened in society.
Yeah.
We knew what their intuition was by
What they did.
the laws that were made and the people that were killed. But the women didn't actually get to do anything. So
We
all
had
they
to
could
be
do
a
was
little
feel.
more on the down low with it, with our actions. Or almost sneaky, like you knew how things would go. So you had to work a situation to make that come true the way you saw it.
Through a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trick a man into doing exactly what you
Yes.
think should be going on.
Yeah.
Well, in this particular essay, and this is like the 1300s, these women were thought to be schizophrenic. They thought that they were hearing voices. And then the man would say, oh, it's God talking to them.
And then
It's
it was
God.
okay.
It's God. It's okay if it's God talking to you, but if it's your inner voice telling you something, then you're crazy. Send her away. Lock her up. I mean, it was very, very interesting that those women paved the way for, I don't even think we're fully involved women still don't
Right.
get the credit that they deserve in certain aspects of the world, but
Right.
it's just that they paved the way.
They weren't afraid to stand
Yeah.
by what they
Yeah.
felt.
Yeah.
And I guess, women's feelings probably didn't.
They didn't matter.
they
then.
didn't
No, they
matter.
just didn't.
The one essay I wanted to bring up because I so could not relate to it, it was almost like, really? The lady that wrote about the survivalist that wrote about being alone in the woods.
The one that went out in the woods and stayed out there and joined a show and
Yeah. And then, so I'm reading this and I'm like, yeah, they're like, you had to film yourself. Like I thought, oh, there's a camera crew with her, whatever. She's not alone.
she did this like Survivor show.
Right.
But you had to have your own, you had to record yourself, and you had to see how long you could survive out in the middle of nowhere. And the answer for me was 0 days, maybe a minute.
0.0.
Until I saw like a bug, I didn't know what it was, and it scared me, and I called them and told them to come
you
and
had
get
to build
me.
your own like housing
Shelter, and-
It was awful. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine anything worse.
Well, I thought, can't imagine anything worse. And then she says, and then I felt, I felt that my son needed me. And I thought, time out. She's got a family. And she said, I'm just going to go survive by myself. You guys stay here.
And to me, that seems so selfish.
Yes. And
Yeah.
she's like, I felt like I really needed to get back to my son. And I was like, well, yeah, you do.
But me calling her selfish kind of comes back to what we're saying about the intuition and
I know.
and the women and the validation. Like, it makes me think of that stupid Eat, Pray, Love when everyone was like, oh my gosh, it's so empowering or whatever. And all I saw was selfish, selfish, selfish.
I thought she was a fraud.
So
I hated
I
that.
struggle
book.
with
Didn't read
this
it.
self
Indulgence.
importance or indulgence or attention. Yet with my kids, I would tell them to do those things. You know what I mean? Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes.
Like, it's good for everybody else.
Everybody but you.
Yep.
It was this lady may have been a very lovely lady. It was the way it was written.
Right.
And it was the way it was. I couldn't get out of my head that her intuition was her being just a complete tryhard. And I just like show
Nobody
off
likes
and,
a try.
and I don't know.
Susan.
I mean, just I don't know. And then I'm like, I don't know this lady. I mean, she could have been very sincere with what she was doing, but she was a survivalist. She was one of those people that could. What was her background? That she like can survive in nature. I don't know. But yeah, that was to me. I was just like, that's how you find your intuition. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so one thing I guess we should have established at the beginning, because I find it difficult to do, is how would you define intuition? Because it's hard to put words to. Anybody have a definition on how, if someone said, hey, what's intuition mean to you?
I couldn't come up with a definition per se, and I'm not stealing from the book, but your intuition is found in silence. I think that the world we live in, the noise, the constant, I mean, we just live in a world full of noise. I think in order to be in touch with your intuition, you have to find some sort of quiet in your life and some kind of silence that where I think your gut and your brain are connected. And I think they kind of talked about this in the book. They kind of talk to each other. You know, you get a nervous stomach when something's upsetting and your brain goes into overdrive. But I think, I don't know.
For me, I think it's when you can put reason aside and make a decision based on a feeling.
Okay.
that's good.
So like an example that just comes to mind, I don't even know if this is a good example, but a young girl meets a guy who is really cute and seems to have it all together, but going out with him seems like a bad idea. So reason would tell you he's a 10, but your gut's telling you run. I don't know. Does that make sense? Is that like
absolutely.
a decent example of what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like,
Yes.
although I wouldn't have run. I would have thought that was a great idea.
I would have too.
And then
How creepy is he? I'm in.
And then left this, to deal with it later. I don't know. So,
Yeah, I guess if I had to put it in words, I put like it's a knowing that you get from your body and then it reaches your mind. Like
Yeah.
there's something
It starts in your gut.
kind of
Yeah.
jolts you and you think, well, what is this jolt? Is this a good jolt or a bad, is this guy creepy or super cute and he's asking me out?
right.
And then your mind kind of have to process everything, but you got to go with, ooh.
Yeah. Like sometimes growing up, the kids would have a friend that everybody thought was super awesome. And,
Oh yeah, I
And
think
I would-
mothers always.
and I would be like, sketch. So I would find ways to, make it inconvenient to hang out till that friendship petered out a little bit. And
Yeah.
and then a year later, everyone would know the truth about XYZ. You know what I mean? So
Correct.
That's intuition, I think.
One of the greatest things I got, and I don't remember if this was in the America Ferrera and Amber Tamblyn, like back and forth, but I think it might have been said that friends are an extension of your intuition. They're a safeguard. So somebody to bounce something off of, because if you think something's a really great idea and you're not sure, your friends will usually be able
A good
to see
friend
beyond.
would, yeah,
Clear it up.
definitely.
Tie break. Yeah. Like, what do you think? So I think having a good group of people to bounce things off of.
Yeah.
And that's really why I never make any mistakes. I just bounce everything off you guys.
And then no mistakes are made. 0. I wrote down, I don't know what I meant by it, but that I have so much self-doubt that I don't validate much of my intuition. Even though if I was asked separately, like I would say, yes, I am very intuitive. Like if I would say, like we've talked before about my powers. I do believe that I have some powers. I don't know if I would call that intuition. And not saying I'm a witch, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. Not really.
No, but I think that is intuition.
No, I think that is intuition.
But
definitely.
there are things that, like, I feel like if I think of them enough, then they kind of manifest.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I don't apply it to myself in any positive way, because
Why would you do that?
why would I do that? That's ridiculous. But I don't even know if that would work in that situation. But anyway, that was a thought that I wrote down.
One of the, actually several of the essays, and I thought, we should have read this when we talked about dreams. A lot of them had to do with dreams.
Yes. But that makes complete sense, because I firmly believe that your dreams are like a part of your subconscious, and some dreams might be very, very outlandish, but if you really diagram them and pick them apart, you could probably process exactly why you had that dream and exactly why you were, I don't know, but you're right.
A lot of those were about dreams. And listening to them and seeing the symbolism in them and them being a way to guide you, even though you didn't. It's kind of a puzzle. Why can't the dream just be more direct? But if you do figure them out, your subconscious, when you're sleeping, is telling you or reinforcing to you what your gut is telling you when you're awake.
Yeah. Have you ever had a dream that you wake up and you're like so shook by it that for hours you're still affected by, that happens kind of regularly to me. You're still affected by this dream. Like you feel shaken.
Oh yeah. It doesn't happen very often, but it has happened.
It's not, it didn't happen in waking time. It was a dream, but the feeling is real.
And then you wonder, what is that?
See, I don't go far enough to wonder what it's telling me. I just think that was weird. I wish I could quit crying over this thing that didn't really happen.
Is there a reason that you think you don't want? I don't wonder. I think I'm not in touch with my intuition because I'm an anxious person. And how do you separate what's anxiety and what's intuition? And if you overthink, like, I'm the type of person that if I had a really scary bad dream, somebody's going to die in my family. That's just what it is. That's what it's telling me. Or I have cancer and I just don't know it yet. That's where my crazy
I'm laughing.
That's where my
hilarious.
Crazy mind goes. And so maybe at the times in my life when my intuition does kind of poke at me, I push it away because I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I would never do that for my kids or my husband or somebody.
Right.
It's me that I don't want to know.
Yes.
Only reading this book has made me think of that because I don't consciously go through my day thinking I'm pushing away my intuition. I don't know. It's a lot.
Well, one thing that they had in the essays, and it was its own little thing, and I assume the author wrote it, but all it said in this chapter was close your eyes and picture a window centered inside you. See the window opening. Listen. What do you hear? And that's when you have to get quiet, real quiet, and let it be quiet for a long time. And I like that idea. It's kind of like those guided meditations.
Which I love.
Which made
Father
me cry.
Jim, my favorite.
Yeah, I don't even know why. I didn't even believe in that kind of thing. And then I went to his guided meditation and I cried. I'm like,
well, he's got a gift. The man, talk about somebody that's probably in touch with their intuition.
Yeah. So I liked that idea, but when I first started thinking about I did guided meditation, I don't know. My first thoughts would be stupid or they're like, and then I'd kind of laugh about it. I'd get myself even in my quiet, I was being quiet, but in my head I was saying crazy things that were like making light of it or
making fun of it because in case someone else would, you wanted to beat them to it.
Yeah. Like,
in case somebody was going to judge you, you were judging yourself.
Definitely.
So you have to be quiet longer than those thoughts happen. You have to let those run their course and then see what
shows up,
what you hear. I have not done that in probably 25 years.
It's about time to do it again.
My window has been closed for 25 years. I wonder what I've been missing.
That's why after I read this book, I've been Googling silent retreats. All the different fun things that you can do where you can get away and go to Utah or go to Sedona or go like for the 3 or 4 days. I want to do that this year. Okay. I mean, that's something that I want. I've never done a silent retreat, and I think that it would be a beautiful thing. I think it would be awful at the beginning, but I think at the end of it,
I don't know if I could do it.
I crave that.
You would talk to yourself?
Yes.
Well, I'm not saying like I'm talking.
We definitely can't go together.
I know. I'm talking silent in the way that you're just not that you can't. I mean, obviously you probably don't talk, but I mean, I would be talking to myself. No doubt. I would have to blurt out something in my own space, but I'm talking just shut off from everything else.
Tracy would yell, "That's what she said," like in the middle of a silent retreat. No one would know.
You could never.
My own thoughts.
Going on a silent retreat with friends probably is not the move, but
retreats in general, I like retreats.
I haven't been on one in
I haven't probably 15 years at least. Yeah,
years.
But I did like them. I like that. I like that that forced reflection, I guess, because I'm not doing it independently.
Well, when we went and visited the Buddhist temple in Bloomington, and we did a book club about it, they have retreats on the weekends that you can, or whatever, throughout the year that you can stay in those little yurts. And I thought, why don't we sign up and do that? I mean, for a weekend, just something that, what greater peace would it be to be around a bunch of Buddhists in quiet.
Yeah.
And not that they didn't say they were silent. I'm just saying in a reflective type atmosphere.
Well, you bring up a good point. I mean, like you said, forced reflection on a retreat in this day and age is probably necessary.
It is.
Like, okay, you're giving yourself permission to stop. Like, I'm going on this retreat. That means I don't care about anything else. It's just going to be me. But I think the thing that bothers me is that I can access that right here in my attic, but I just don't. It's like exercising at home. I would never do it.
Sometimes you need a teacher, though. You need somebody that can teach you and guide you through it. I think it takes a different kind of discipline to do that by yourself.
Yeah. I think you just have to be open to the silence first, and then I'm obviously not. One thing that they did bring up in the essays that I liked was that intuition is learned. So a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have it. I'm like, well, you do. And some people are like, well, I've had it before, but haven't felt it lately. I mean, it just talks about it.
That's where I am.
Yeah. As being a muscle that you definitely improves the more it's used and the more you're consciously thinking about it. So if you feel like you're out there, like I have no gut reaction to anything.
Yes.
You do, but you're going to have to really concentrate on it, and it can improve. Was there any other essay that jumped out at you, Kim, that maybe Tracy didn't read that you want to tell her to go read?
I liked the one, the lady that spoke about her dreams. I think she had some mental health issues. The one that ate dirt.
I couldn't read that.
And it was just, she had a very traumatic childhood, which in the essay, I don't think that she really went into full detail.
I got through the first 2 paragraphs and she was talking about digging around, eating. I got to the sentence
where bury the pins and all that.
Yeah. And then she had imaginary friends.
Oh, you read that one, huh?
That one, it fascinated me to the point that I really think she had some kind of clairvoyance. I really do. I think that she knew I don't know. Out of all the essays that I read, I thought that lady was one of the ones that was most in tune with her intuition. And I think it was because of her childhood traumas, and her dreams spoke to her.
Okay.
The wolves, isn't that the one where she had the dreams about the wolves?
A lot of wolves.
That essay like really like fascinated me as far as just her. And I don't know if it's because maybe she had some mental illness or some kind of mental disorder with she's kind of named it something with eating, like the reason why she did that.
Like pica or something like that?
Yeah, something, that
People who eat the dirt or eat their couches. Yeah, it's called pica.
When you're their couches.
Yeah, there's people that
stuffing and
that have eaten like an entire couch because their body craves that.
But it was for a reason, like it was a psychological reason.
Yeah.
She fascinated me. I liked her writing. I thought that she just wrote in such detail, and it wasn't over my head. I think towards the end there were a couple essays and I was like, what in the world is going on? Like it was some kind of like poem, and I was like, am I that? Like I always am very down on myself. Am I not intellectual enough to understand this?
Or maybe you're too intellectual, because some of it was kind of dumb.
I think too intellectual. That's how I feel about myself.
Yeah. So...
No, I was with you on that. And
totally kind of off subject, but back to the gut thing. Had you guys ever, the name of like, there is a group of nerves in our gut called the solar plexus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'd never heard that before, and I love biology, and I'd never heard that before, but one of the essays, there's a science behind it. I mean, thousands and thousands of nerves, and they go directly up. Like your vagus nerve is like your biggest nerve in your body. And that controls like your entire central nervous system. So, but all those nerves in that solar plexus feed into your brain. And what they were saying is that intuition most definitely scientifically starts in the gut. Then what you feel in your gut, and then your brain is your reason. It was, I would like to learn more about that.
Like breathing techniques or things where you like turn your head to the side to kind of reset, and you're physically maneuvering things around this nerve to reset your body.
What? Was that in the book?
No.
I follow.
Did you just make that up?
No, it's just something I know.
Well, from an anxious person, there are all kinds of vagal exercises that you can do.
Vagal.
To reset your central nervous
system. From the cerebellum all the way down.
Like Las Vegas? Is that what you're saying? I have never heard of this nerve.
The vagus nerve.
The nerve. Yes. I've never heard of it.
Yes. And I'm into it for several reasons, but one, my kids have different neurological things, a couple, and like the main research for Zach is being done on gut health and the permeability of a leaky gut, and like the foods, all of that affects your brain, and you think it doesn't, but it's all so connected.
The scientist in the book,
your physical gut, and so when you have that feeling. Is it just your brain in a different section of your body? You know what I mean? If that makes sense. It's not actually your stomach thinking this. It's that part of your brain that extends down into your body, to the center of your body.
Well, the scientist that wrote that article about all the solar plexus basically said, and she wasn't doing this to like make any kind of like commission, everybody should be on probiotics, whatever does your gut health.
Yes.
Because if you keep your gut in check.
Yes.
Then it keeps the rest of your body in check.
So when we say that, then I've got Zach's neurosurgeon. Zach's not allowed to go on probiotics because they believe that the brain bleeds happen when there is a disturbance in his gut health, in your microbiome. And he's not had a bleed in 10 years. So he has a stable microbiome for him. And so they tell him not to take them. Although every other condition says take them.
Yeah.
They're saying whatever you're doing is working for you and this condition that we already know you have. So we're not going to mess with that.
Don't mess with that.
That's really
Zach
interesting.
Likes him. Now he can eat a little bit of kimchi, which is disgusting, but he likes it. He can do a little bit of natural probiotics that way. But as far as supplementing, he's not allowed. So that's just a little weird.
That's really
fact
it's really
on probiotic
interesting.
and gut health that I happen to have in my...
I'm all for taking a good gummy. I do love a good gummy.
You just like them because you're pretending it's candy.
I'm not pretending it's candy. I think
you're not saying a CBD, or are you?
My intuition tells me it is candy.
What kind of gummy are you talking? Like a pot, or
there are probiotic gummies.
Probiotic gummies.
Probiotic
you didn't specify. There are all kinds of gummies.
Oh well, no, not. Please, no. I take gummies for everything. I don't take pot gummies, but I take gummies if there's a vitamin or a
I do too.
Yeah, that's
like
in a gummy
vitamin
form.
C,
If it's in gummy, I'm
Me too.
eating it.
magnesium, calm gummies.
Well, here's
That's
my problem.
delicious.
So I took a probiotic gummy just because I've heard the word probiotic, and
Right.
I was encouraged that that's probably important. But how do you know if it's helping?
There are also prebiotics. There are different kinds. And
Pro
they're-
and pre?
I know.
Yeah.
And different people would tell you, a lot of people are starting to go to osteopathic doctors, which I'm a little hesitant, but then I'm thinking, am I missing the train? I don't know,
Yeah.
because I'm judging them.
Well, we're so behind on that kind of stuff. I mean,
Yes.
that's a known fact
I know.
that we.
I'm so open to so much
Me too.
other, like Eastern medicine type things, except for like real medicine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that
Like
a
an
mixture of
osteopath,
both
I'm
is
like,
helpful.
No way.
Well, one of
But if you want
the
me to take this weirdo thing, I'm all
I'm
for
in.
it. You know,
a
Yeah.
weird gummy.
let me try it. Give me
Yum.
7.
Well, one of the essays was about a doctor and was by a doctor, and she was talking about how the intuition for a doctor is part of.
They take classes on it.
Well, it's like it's definitely part of being a good doctor is, I mean, all the information, but going with your gut feeling about what should be done for somebody is absolutely part of being a good doctor. Like not just reading the facts,
Yes.
going with feeling. And that puts I thought, boy, they already go through a lot of schooling. That puts a lot of pressure on somebody.
Yeah, I agree.
And they're like, yeah.
Especially like a doctor, like she was saying, in an emergency room situation.
Yeah, she was.
You know, you're going in with most of everything that comes in as the unknown. Pulmonary embolisms, they said, were their big study of using your gut versus your knowledge, because there are markers that would say you better check for that. You know, it was very interesting. She was stating studies, and there was classes, and that they train doctors to use their gut.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go against what
Yeah.
your mind is telling you.
Yep.
Like I mentioned, rare diseases. People with rare diseases are referred to as zebras.
Yeah.
And in medical school, they teach you if something looks and sounds, they call it a horse. If it looks like a horse, whatever, it's a horse. But sometimes you have to say no, it might be a zebra, and that's when their intuition
Yeah.
comes in sometimes and goes with something different than obvious.
One thing that they said in the book about keys to accessing your intuition, we were talking about just the silence
Yeah.
that we don't have, but if we did, we probably would get a little bit more information. One of the keys that they said in the book about accessing your intuition was asking yourself, what would I do if I didn't have to explain it to anybody? So
That is none of your business. No, I don't know.
No, so like if you're presented with a decision to make and you weren't sure, and if you asked yourself, well, what would I do if I didn't have to explain this to anyone? What would I choose to do? That is one way. That question is one way to access your intuition.
That's a deep question too. I don't know. I mean, I thought about that a lot after I read that, and I just don't even know if I'd have to really be in a quiet space to think, what would I do?
Well, and the other thing was we were talking about alternative medicine and just different ways of thinking. One of the essays had a Buddhist mantra. Do you remember reading this?
No, yes, yeah.
So it said the Buddhist mantra was chop wood and carry water, which basically means, master your connection to your intuitive life and simple necessities of survival, and then all the other miracles around you will be revealed. So basically, you need to meet your basic needs, chop wood and carry water. And as you focus on that simple thing,
and not focus on all the other noise.
yeah, canceling out everything else and I think that's kind of what the lady that was the survivalist that we were making fun of, I think that
Yeah.
was kind of her thing. Like she just she pared it down to the bare necessities. She made sure she had water, and then she had a dry place to be. And then she had time, once she had secured that, to sit,
And she can
and kinda
talk to bears.
talk to bears, and just kind of ask them what she thinks she should do. I don't know. But I like that idea of just,
Be on your way. Do your thing.
yeah, don't bother. I'm not bothering you. You're not bothering me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
I'd like to
fascinating.
bother you both. I don't know. Okay, I'm just
Okay.
kidding. I'm not going to bother you.
At the end of the book, there was a roadmap, a blueprint is what she called it, of when you're faced with a decision, kind of how to go about. And I don't know if that was true, but
I know.
I was like, okay. And that's when it kind of went on and on.
Yeah.
It got a little out there. But basically it said if you're faced with a decision and you're not sure, like you're not feeling your intuition kicking in, that you're just supposed to sit in silence for like a really long time. And then just kind of pause. And when you think you know, you don't. And just pause a little more. I don't know when people have all this time just to be quiet and sit. But, and then once you reach an answer that you think is your answer, you ask yourself, I'm afraid of this answer because blank. And then you just sit there and feel for a lot longer. Like it just went on. I'm like,
Yeah, I need to speed that up. I need to.
We need this to be-
We're on a time crunch here.
so, but what she was saying is some of your decisions, if you struggle with stuff, feel like a failure or like a loss or sadness. Like when you come to a decision about something, you know, I don't know, anything can feel like it's a failure, but it also might feel like freedom if you give yourself a chance to feel it. Like if you don't want to, I don't know, break up with your boyfriend, but you sit there for a long time and be silent. And then you're like, yeah, I should probably break up with my boyfriend. That feels like you're failing at the relationship, you know, like feel like you've lost.
But once you do it, and if it's the right decision,
Right.
then it's freeing.
Gotcha.
I feel like that I lead a pretty mundane, boring life. And I'm thankful that I don't have a lot of like things in me that say, you really better listen to your gut. You really better. Like, I don't feel like I'm faced with that a lot at the age that I'm at. Like, I don't have necessarily a career or like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, or some huge deadline or I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Like a catastrophic decision. Like,
yes. And not to say that I'm probably jinxing myself, but a catastrophic decision.
like what I'm going to have for dinner is
Yeah,
really
that's-
not.
Yeah.
Well, and some people never have those. So if there are periods in your life that you have, then that's more than most, I would
Yeah.
say. Do you guys journal? They talked some on journaling in here.
I
I
don't.
have off and on, but never consistently.
No, I laugh because if I go through like my important papers, my filing system is non-existent. It's like in big boxes of crap.
Yeah.
But there have been several times that I've thought I'm going to journal, and I'll either buy one or and I write like 3 pages for like, and then I'm like done after like 3,
Yeah, me
4
too.
days, whatever. And then I'll come across that, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll pull these pages out and throw them in there in a box. And this is a good notebook for someone. And then I try again. I mean, there were years that I did journal, and then I didn't for forever, and I don't now. But
Yeah, they do say it's wonderful for you.
Yes,
But
like it's supposed to be like one of the major things to do, and I would tell my kids to do it.
it takes too much discipline, too much effort. I can't remember to do anything every day.
But there were like times that I thought I don't have anything to write, and then I thought that's embarrassing.
Yeah, but
To who,
sometimes
me? I don't
sometimes your
know.
mind just doesn't. I think
Yeah.
journaling is a discipline, most definitely.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. if
Okay.
you did.
Well, have you ever gone back and read some of your journaling things and think, what am I talking about?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Like, I have memory issues, so sometimes it's a revelation.
Maybe
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, look at
this
that.
happened to me.
Well, sometimes someone will show me a picture or something. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up because Tracy's having memory issues. Thank you so much for joining us on Up for Grabs. I do think if you are curious about your intuition or would like to take in other people's takes about their intuition, this was it was worth a go through.
It was interesting.
It was interesting.
It was called Listening in the Dark. So you might want to pick it up and just see what people have to say about it. But thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to having you back next time. See ya.